Welcome back to the show. In today's episode, I am going to be introducing you to a coach who has developed a really interesting approach to marketing, which is to, first and foremost, approach your marketing with what she calls a contribution mindset. It's a really interesting spin on how to market. So my guest name is Christina Frei, and Christina is a marketing consultant, author, and creator of the Generosity Practice Mindset Work and the Innate Marketing Genius tools and method. So Christina's official bio states that she helps brilliant, mission-based entrepreneurs look smart and get hired. And she recently published her book, The Generosity Practice, 40 Days to Unstoppable, and her signature offering is the Compelling Expert Program. In between all of these things, she chases her dog around with a stuffed animal snake, meditates on a pink couch, and obsesses over the perfect cup of green tea, all in a seaside town north of Boston. You just gotta love that bio, right? Anyway, I won't steal any more of Christina's thunder, and I will let her tell you all about her approach herself. So let's get into today's conversation. Well, hey, Christina, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kim. Great to be here.
Yeah, I am so looking forward to this conversation because I really love the work that you're doing, and I am so excited to learn a lot more about your ideas. I know that, marketing is something that many people in my audience are either really worried about or kind of confused about or just don't feel great about. And I think that you've got a strategy that is going to be a breath of fresh air to everyone. So I cannot wait to get into all of that. Before we do, get into all that good stuff, I would love to start just by giving people a bit of context. So just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do, Christina.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Christina Frei, and I do branding and marketing. I'm actually here in the North Shore of Boston. And what I do is I work with service professionals. I love your word of helpers, helpers in financial professions and coaching fields to become compelling experts. And so that's my goal in life. As far as my personal background and stuff right now, I do cold dipping, talk about like health coaching and a health practice right now. That's a newer one for me, but it's been wonderful. I have a whole community up here of crazy cold dippers that go on like snowstorms and ice storms, and we just go in together.
Wow.
And there's a whole Instagram feed on that. Like I could do a whole show on that.
It sounds like it would be a fascinating show, actually. That would be really, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's pretty, I'll start with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm curious, so you're helping the helpers just like me, same sort of idea. What's the story under that? How did you get into that? I always love to hear a little bit of like the journey. What's your story?
Sure. So about 7 years ago, I was at a big turning point in my life where I was ending a lot of things at once, many of which were income streams for me. And it was a moment of, oh my goodness, like I really don't know what's next. And so one thing that I decided to do was lean really hard on a mindset tool that I had actually created myself like years prior. And I always knew that if I were in a true bind, I could always use it and it would get me out of anything. Like, I don't know how I knew that. I just knew it. And so I did it. And about a month later, I had, and it really was just a month, I had 3 really lucrative, great projects that did not require tons of calling and networking. It was like 3 calls. And I just knew that these were the right people. Something activated when I really used this tool, which I now call the generosity practice. And because the results were so satisfying and I was sleeping well, which is a miracle, and paying my bills and everything was rolling forward, because I've had a similar situation happen in the past and I lost my health for years. So I just said to myself, heck no, that's not happening. So I used this practice. And so because of those results, I started teaching it. So that was 2015 when I started teaching it. And, it's something that like I have tons of meditation background. I was at the Berkeley Psychic Institute for like 6 years in the early 2000s. And so if you asked me to sit down and look at energy for 6 hours straight, I could do that. Like that's just something I do. But I didn't know if anybody else could just go there, because that's what this practice asks of you. You
Mm.
get to be in the subtleties of like your mind and your spirit as you close your eyes and just kind of stay open to the unknown, right? There's a little bit of mystery to the practice. Anyway, so I had people, eventually I had a field study of 40 people in 5 countries doing this practice for 30 days and sending me data on what they got out of it, what it changed for them, how they were using it, because it's very individualized. And a lot of the feedback that I got was, wow, when I do this generosity practice, I am a much more consistent marketer. I don't care if I'm rejected. I'm much better at the negotiation table. I can listen for a much longer period of time, even if people are rude, and of course, I paid attention to that. So then I conducted another field study, 40 entrepreneurs. I created their marketing plans, and I did it using a really deep version of the generosity practice. Like I could geek out about the levels of that thing forever, but it's kind of esoteric, so I won't go there. But suffice it to say that when I did this, every single person I worked with had what I call an archetype of service. So it's like, what is your lane where if you're operating in that way and speaking to that message, whatever it may be, that you just have boundless energy. It's just on purpose. And everybody wins. Like you're energized. People appreciate what you have to offer. It's like everybody's dream to have this kind of, result. So I wonder to myself, if you know your marketing archetype, could you then create a message, a strategy, a plan for the year? I wonder. And so I did. And I did it for 40 people in a row. And when I did that, it worked wonders because it helped me to focus everything really fast. Like if you know that you're a nurturer or an adventure guide or a door opener, these are just some of the examples of the archetypes. Now you know like the kind of impact you want to make on other people. And it just simplifies everything. I could go on and on, but I'll just stop there for a moment so I can breathe and maybe you have another question.
Yeah, I could keep on listening because this is fascinating. And I love how it sort of made it all, kind of scientific. Like you took what you knew had worked for you and then extrapolated, okay, well, and got really curious about it. Like, okay, how else could this actually show up? And how far could we take this? Could this give you your plan for the year? All of those kinds of things. So that's really cool. I love that whole process of how you kind of followed your nose into what would work from a very organic perspective. I'd love to, let's start peeling back some layers and get into things a little bit more. I'd love to, you've got a term that you use, contribution mindset. I would love for you to tell me a little bit more about that. What does that mean?
So I would imagine that if you're listening to this podcast, that you have put some emphasis in your life on mindset, right? So I don't think I need to talk about like there are different zones we can go in, right? Different channels we can be in. And this particular channel is the kind where you just lost out on a client, right? Maybe they just decided not to work with you or they decided to end working with you, a tough turning point in your business. Maybe you just lost 3 clients. I don't know. When income is at stake and there are tough decisions to be made, that if you're in a contribution mindset, that is never going to stop you. Like you are playing a much bigger game of service to the wider world, service to the people around you in your family, in your life, your friends. Like there's a way to stay in that lane so that the day-to-day just doesn't phase you as much. It's like being in a state of grace where you just know you're helping so much on so many levels. And it starts with like your inner self. That the ups and downs, like if someone's really rude to you in a conversation, you're still going to keep listening, right? That's another example of it. Or, there's such a stigma to giving, I think, that makes it seem exhausting. Like, how much am I supposed to give? But if you take 10 minutes, because that's pretty much what it takes. If you take 10 minutes to make some choices around like, well, what would feel good? What would feel good today to offer to life? That's literally the question of the practice. What feels good to offer to life today? And again, many layers, a lot of depth to the practice, but that's really the essence of everything. And notice that it feels good, not what is right. So there's something that has your name on it today. That if like you just even pictured yourself giving it out to the world or one person or a group, that like your entire approach to things that are tough would change and you become unstoppable, which is the subtitle of my new book. It's 40 Days to Unstoppable. That's my generosity practice book.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we definitely I definitely want to talk to you about the book, but just to go back to the idea of contribution mindset. So it sounds
Yeah.
like, I mean, you're absolutely right. People in I mean, this podcast is called Marketing and Mindset for Wellness Coaches. So yes, I mean, that is just a big deal for me, of course, and I'm sure that any of my members of my audience who are tuning in right now are on board with that idea for sure. But it's really cool. I've never heard the phrase like contribution mindset. The mindset framework that I often use is like an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And it feels like maybe what you're saying is similar, but even more specific. Abundance is quite a broad concept and can be applied to lots of different things, but contribution mindset. So this, it sounds like to me, if I'm getting this, is like really focusing on how you are helping, how you are serving, not so much what you've lost out on or what you didn't get to do or what didn't come to you, but it's more like, how can I continue to, even in the face of setbacks, contribute and serve and help? Is that right, though? Am I on the right
Yes.
track?
And I will share with you where this entire practice came from and why what you just said totally relates. So there was a tool that I learned in my spiritual studies that was all about creating something that you want, right? It was just like this tool that, you know, you use it and it's like you send it off to the edge of the universe and then you're waiting for whatever it is that you want to come, whether it's a relationship, a car, it can be very mundane. It could be world peace, like whatever it is. And what I found is that if it's just about me, then I'm stuck kind of waiting for my stuff to come. And it feels
Mm.
incredibly disempowering and selfish and not in a good way. I think there's time to
Right.
be selfish, but like it doesn't help when you're sort of waiting for something. So what I noticed was if I offer something out just in myself, in my mind, out to the world, out to the universe for the sheer joy of it with no expectations of getting it back. Like there is no like, what is it you want, Christina? Like, let's put a list together and then give it to your genie and they'll bring it back. Like it was so not like that. It was more like, if you could give anything and it's up to you. Like it started off with a purple rose. I remember the exact moment in my parents' basement in Connecticut where I was like, oh, I just gave away something with no expectation. It was just fun to do. So that was the turning point for me is like, I'm not looking for my stuff, but my stuff
Right.
comes. That's what the weird thing is. My stuff was coming once I stopped worrying about my stuff.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. That totally resonates. I like the idea of like not having expectation. So, because it can be, you know, you're kind of still doing the same thing if you're just showing up and doing this with the absolute intention that it's only going to be worthwhile if I get something back or if I receive what I am asking for. But this is like a small but powerful shift, is that we're not expecting, that's, we're detaching from that it's going to immediately give us a return. So okay, that's cool. I mean, it sounds like this is something that you have spent a lot of time studying, and I think that you started to hint at that with when you were developing this whole framework. But can you tell me a bit more about how you actually, studied all of these pieces?
Sure. So one of the things that I like, I'll just share how I teach it, right?
Yeah.
So there are different, and it's funny, like no one has ever asked me to get this granular, so I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So there
That's what I
are,
do.
yeah, there are different levels and like aspects of the practice that really lock it into place. Number one is when you close your eyes, there's a place that you can go that is what I call your all of life place. And this is a place where you have so much reverence and a feeling of connection to everything and everyone that like it's just easy. Like for a lot of people, um, it's the beach. A lot, some people it'd be like an altar or the top of a mountain. This just makes it much easier so that if you've got the 10 minutes, it's not a lot of time, that you can just close your eyes and go to the place where you feel connected to everything. So that's your all of life place, right? And then you need to be willing to go into the unknown, where you're just asking whoever, life, the universe, for like, okay, there's a gift that really is calling to me today. This is kind of the deepest level of practice. There's a really gentle way to get into this, hence my book. And I have a couple of programs, and, because this is deep work, and it can be really confronting to just step into the unknown and wait for like a beautiful gift to fall in your lap. Like there's a few steps before that, but this is the depth of it, where you're willing to just not know. And what's interesting is the visual. Like a lot of people will go for a feeling. They want to give away peace. They want to give away confidence. They want to, right? But what I found, and this is a recent discovery, is that if you can let it be visual, it will surprise you. And that's what you want. Visual can surprise you. Feelings cannot. It's kind of like when you're just drifting off to sleep and things start moving around in your consciousness. And it's like, I didn't even make that happen. It's just happening. Like that's the place you want to get to. That's when I feel, and I've seen it in everyone I work with, that's when grace has a chance to talk to you. And then you're like, oh my gosh, this gift, like, what is this? And a lot of times it's weird. Like that's like level 2, where you're just willing to just get weird and give away things like piles of dirt, which is what I do a lot. And like, I don't know, you become Van Gogh, I say, because like dude did everything without really any recognition or understanding by anyone around him. And that worked out well. I mean, he didn't see his own success, but
not in his lifetime, but yeah.
That took courage, and that's what I mean.
Yes. Yes. Okay. That you're right. That is deep work. No, that's that. I love that. I know that I heard you a couple minutes ago talk about people becoming unstoppable in their marketing. Yeah. And so, because we're getting into kind of the deep esoteric side of this, but I want to bring this to how is this going to translate? What does this actually do? What have you seen this do? And what does it mean to become unstoppable in your marketing?
Yeah. And let me just tie the other thing up with a bow. So once you get your gift that knocks your socks off, then you offer it out. So I just want to tie that up. You offer it out. And one thing I want to point out is that it's really important to trust all of life. Like I've had a lot of clients that will offer it out and they'll freak out that it's like, oh, well, what if I give something away and not everyone is happy about it? Just that fear is there. And it's like, you get to decide that, like make a relationship with all of life such that that's not even a thing. You just trust it to take it where it's most needed and wanted. Up to you, right? Okay. So as far as the marketing goes, what I notice about marketing is that it's really a series of testing, where you're trying something. You're trying a message. You're trying a vehicle. You're just trying something. And so built into that is a lot of times where it doesn't work. And it's really easy to fall into a place of resignation. I've done it, like I've been pretty resigned about my email list until about a year and a half ago. Now I'm like, oh my God, I love my email list. Like it feels like family. I just can't wait to do another email to my email list. So I totally get that. The other thing is, you give stuff out and you have no idea at any moment how people are going to receive it, especially as a solo business owner. Like you don't have millions of dollars in market research budgets to test things. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot riding on your testing as you do it. So what this practice allows you to do is to come out of all of the, let's call it failure, right? It's like you tried something, it didn't work. And all that, there's some emotional charge to that. I think that's a lot of why marketing doesn't always feel authentic and it feels fake, because most of us are not really willing to face everything. I think if you're a health and wellness professional, you are willing to face that. So you might as well do it in your marketing and just be real. Like, let yourself hate doing YouTube videos and just see where that allowing gets you, right? I'm all about like just being real about what you don't like about marketing. Anyway, so coming into the generosity practice is basically coming off that entire train. If that train of marketing is like, it's just like a big old, it can get chaotic and there's a lot of things to manage and stay on top of. get off that track and just figure out, all right, if I could just give anything away, like what truly is the greatest thing ever? And it gets you in what that does is it puts you in a space of joy, like joy of offering. A lot of what I'm saying is really, it's tough to language this stuff. It's what you feel when you're like at a wedding and there's that moment in time where it's like, everyone just wants the best for everyone. And there's just this like back and forth flow. And I'm not saying every wedding is like that, but there's just like this grace that comes upon you, right? So like, let's say you can get there in 10 minutes in the morning. You have a lot more vitality to go out into the world and like make changes because already you are loving offering. And I know that sounds really general, but I've seen it over and over and over again. It is the stamina that people need to just try again. It really just comes down to that. It's like, do you remember how much you love to help people? Yes. Okay, go do it again. And then that they just keep moving.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that if we're talking about this concept of becoming unstoppable, because we can, I mean, to think about that, what are the things that stop people? It's if they are really attached to a certain outcome, or if they view what they did, which was an experiment in their marketing, if they view that as a failure. So when those are all the things that tend to stop people in their tracks and make them want to kind of give up and just go do something else altogether. But if what you're talking about is shifting your, mindset, your perspective, your goals, it's not about the getting and the success and, all of those trappings. It's about what are you doing and providing and sharing and all of that, like the contribution mindset, which means that you've already succeeded. It's not about failing, right? If you put yourself out there and you're sharing things and you're showing up and serving people without expectation of what you're going to get, you are in control of whether that succeeds or not because you've already done it, right? Is that how that
Yeah.
plays
And
out?
that's why people, and I know I'm connecting dots. It's like, I haven't done a double blind study on this one, but I will tell you that it's that sense that you've already made a contribution to life that
Yeah.
I think makes you a better negotiator at the table, right? Like you're
Mm.
a better salesperson because you're already making a difference in the world and that's what you stand for at the deepest part of your being. And it's not about impressing. But what happens is you listen so much better so that whenever you actually start to talk, people are just like, oh my God, you actually get us. Where can I sign up?
Yeah. It's like a side effect of
Yeah.
you showing up with this perspective is that actually what ends up happening is that you do get so much more coming back to you, but that's not what you started off with as a goal. It's like this paradoxical thing. So, yeah, I love that perspective because like honestly, whatever it takes to, if there's something that can help people to not show up, like you don't want to just take your ball and go home, right? And you need to keep on going. If you're going to be doing good in the world, you need to keep going even in the face of things not working out the way that you maybe wanted them to. And so if you can just focus on how you're helping the world, the market, the community, your people, whoever is listening, then you're winning, and that'll keep you going. You're going to stay in the game as a result.
I was giving a talk today to a group of real estate agents here in the Boston area, and I did one of those online surveys, like a cool one, not the one that Zoom gives you. And like my question was, marketing is hard. Like this aspect of marketing is hard, and almost the entire room said staying consistent. So what you just said,
Yeah.
like, bore out in those results. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That, I mean, we hear that like consistency. It's just such the name of the game in so many different aspects of your marketing. And this kind of mindset is going to help you stay consistent and stay at it. I am really curious about the book that you
Yeah.
touched on a second ago. Tell me about the generosity practice. I would love to hear more about
Yeah.
your book.
Yeah. So it took me a very long time to even believe that I could teach this metaphysical energy thing on paper. I just was of the mind that there's no way to translate this magic into a document. Like, no, not doing it. And then somebody that I trust said to me, I think it's time. And, it helped that this person was like a best-selling author, just like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm listening. And so I don't know if you want to hear the process, but I basically went through about 3 versions of the material. And what really mattered to me was that it was beautiful and
Hmm.
that it was gentle, because I just want people to know that, like, with 10 minutes, like, I'll just show you. Here's the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
show me.
So I had this wonderful designer who's based in Vienna put it together. So just to show you some of the, like, how pretty it is.
Oh,
She
yeah.
just
Oh,
she
beautiful.
just made it so gorgeous. I'm like worship the ground she walks on. Um, it's playful, and yeah, I just love what she did. Anyway, so I went through a few iterations, and then I hired a book production company. And as soon as I did that, I sat in like an auto repair shop and knocked out a fresh new curriculum with everything ironed out in about 3 hours. And then just work with the right people, and here we are.
Oh, that's amazing. So then what was your timeline for putting it all together? Like
It took
from
about
sort
2
of
years, I would
idea?
say, from beginning to
Uh-huh.
end. Once I
Mhm.
finally hired the book production company, it took 3
Mm.
months.
Oh, okay. So that was really the thing that flipped the switch and got things moving.
Seemingly, I couldn't even describe it. It's like I was figuring out a new way to teach it, or just a new layer to teaching
Mhm.
it that helped a lot of newbies get it much faster. But I called those layers. And then there's like
Mhm.
levels. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to put layers and levels in the same book? Like, as an educator,
Mm.
you obsess about stuff like this, right?
Yes.
How can I beautifully unfold this such that people are like, oh, yeah, I get it. This is great. And I don't know, like, hiring that company and then sitting in my auto mechanic repair shop, like, it just was the right combination, I
That's
guess.
hilarious. I love that. That's just like such a real moment. That's so cool. So who did you write the book for? Like who would be the best person to read your book, and then what are they going to get out of it?
I would say that any entrepreneur that feels alone in what they do.
Mm.
When I created the back cover, I said, "Hey, there, creative leader and change maker." Like, that was my people. But
Yeah.
honestly, I've had some time to just sort of sit with it, and this is an incredibly connecting practice. I think that being in business for yourself can be really lonely sometimes, or at least you're spending some time alone. I do sense that we're going to get back in person way more often now, thank God. But
Yes.
even then, it can be lonely. So yeah, anyone who wants to be unstoppable and is doing their own thing and feels alone sometimes doing it.
I love that. And so it's called The Generosity Practice, and then you said the subtitle
Yeah,
was
40 Days to Unstoppable.
Oh, great. And so it's a program basically. Like
Mhm.
in that 40-day framework there are, and I could see like there were prompts and things like that. Like certainly you're leading people through. It's more of an interactive process than just sort of like a
Absolutely.
passive,
You
you're
could
not just
call it a
kind of
workbook.
consuming it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's great though. I love that. That's my favorite kind of thing where it's not just like passively telling me stuff, but I actually get opportunity and prompted to implement and make real changes in my life. So I love that. That sounds amazing.
great.
Are you going to write another book?
Well, I will probably write a book around the innate marketing genius material, like all those archetypes. I
Hmm.
give talks about that all the time. And what I love about that material is I've studied it long enough now that I know how to, if you know your archetype, then I know how to help you tell the right story and then choose the right strategy and take that show on the road. So it'd be nice to have a book. I'm not entirely sure of the format, just to show that and share it and help people get there themselves.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that innate marketing genius. Is that what you called it? And
Mhm.
your archetypes. How many are there? Do you have a certain number of archetypes that
Yeah,
you've
I
come up
do.
with?
And I can very easily, just lay them out for you. There's 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, so nurture is the first one. And nurtures, I basically describe what their why is. There's a lot more to it, but the why for a nurture is to make it safe for others to thrive all day long.
Mm.
They love that. Adventure guides are people who love, well, they see what's possible for the people in their lives way before they do, and they empower them to get into action. Then you have door openers that remind me of like Ben Franklin and Leonardo da Vinci. They open doors of perception. They are natural educators and just wow, like there's tons of ideas there and perspectives. Then you have steady presences that are more like a pillar, and they are deep treasure troves of resources, expertise, and network. And yeah, their why is you've got this. Like you have what you need to move forward. That's what they would say to anyone they work with. And then the celebrators are the last category. And celebrators want to bring the good life. They want to bring the good life to others, and they do it with some sort of natural flair that is unique to them.
I love that. And so with each of those archetypes, I mean, assuming in your programs, you've got a way for people to learn which, of those archetypes they're most aligned with. And then from there, I think I heard you say that you have, there's frameworks from there of how this is going to inform how you show up, how you market, like all of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Quick example. So if you're a nurturer, and if you I have an assessment on my website where you can just find out in 5 minutes which one is yours. So for a nurturer, you do not need to come in with guns blazing and solutions. We actually love to hear nurturers level with us about our own suffering. We just need to hear that nurturers understand the pain that we're in or challenge that we're in, and then tell us examples of what works, right? Like that's very unique to nurturers. And on the other hand, adventure guides are people who we don't need to know your expertise, at least not at the beginning. We want to know what's possible when we work with you. So focus on the end goals that we're going to achieve with you. So that's a completely different approach than a nurturer. Yeah. So that's what I look at is how do you need to tell your story such that it's magnetic, you're energized, and everybody wins.
Right. And that's just such a cool take on it, because I know that there's a lot of people who, you try to fit yourself into a particular model of maybe you've seen other people's sales pages or messaging or, the way that they're showing up, and you're trying to replicate that. And I know that a lot of people do that and really feel out of alignment. And what I love about your framework is that there's not just one way to show up and market and present your offers. That really and that might be kind of the missing piece for many people, is that they're trying to follow one archetype that they have seen and they're kind of modeling on that. But really their archetype is something different. So instead of being like that adventure guide, showing the vision, showing what's possible, really your people and the way that you would want to show up for them is more like the nurturer, which is helping them to see that you really get them, and that we're not going to get all down into solutions and, all of that kind of stuff. It's more like, I hear you, I see you, I'm here for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
And
so cool.
Kim, with your permission, I would love to just muscle test which one you are. Are you game?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's try. For
okay,
sure.
So let me check.
Okay. I am kind of curious.
Yep, you're a celebrator through and through. I don't know if that resonates. Sometimes there's a secondary, but I get you as a celebrator with no secondary. And that again,
oh my God, how did you get that? What was your process just then of coming
Do you know
up
muscle
with that?
testing? Do you know kinesiology?
Well,
have you ever?
Yes, but not in this perspective. Tell me more about what that.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned this is other stuff that I've learned along the way, but you can actually surrogate for other people by asking permission. And so I just ask, is it okay for me to check in on this? Yeah. And does Kim have a primary? Yes, she does. And then I just check on all of them. Is it nurture? Nope. I just kind of go through it. I'm
oh yeah, that's what you're running through.
Yeah, I'm just running nurture, adventure guide, steady presence, door opener, celebrator, really strong yes. So
okay, tell me a little bit about celebrator. Just give me a little blurb, because now you've piqued my interest.
Yeah, so celebrators are, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's the energy we have missed the most during the pandemic, which is the good life, just hanging out and having fun and all kinds of flair and kicking back, whatever version it is. And one thing that you love to do is to take a situation of maybe dry, boring, whatever you want to call it, and infuse it with life and color and vitality. That is a huge gift of the celebrators. And you have your own version of like, well, what is the good life? If I were to ask you that, right, you would have your own answer to that. That is different from another celebrator. And you also have your own particular flair. Some people it's humor. Some people it's design sense. Some people it's just you're a walking party. It's different for everyone. So that could be a conversation. And then as far as how to tell your story, celebrators have a lot easier time enjoying life. And I think they don't always realize that a lot of us struggle. So what's really compelling is when celebrators just share their enjoyment. I literally start by just asking them like, what is it you love about what you're up to right now? Whether it's your work, your personal, any other projects you're working on, like just tell me. You can just see like the magnetism coming off them as they start sharing, story after story after story. And it's like, okay, great. That and also appreciating other leaders in your community. I love looking at John F. Kennedy as the celebrator of the NASA space program because his really acknowledging the leadership of that science project is what it was the tide that raised all the ships. Like that's a huge example, but that's what celebrators do. You call out what's working. You're like, this is incredible. And everyone's like, yeah. So yeah.
I love that. Oh my God. I now, of course, now I have to go and find out more about this because that completely resonates. And I really love that.
Great. That's my next question. How does that land
yes.
with you?
Yes, absolutely. No, and and that makes me super happy to hear that's coming across. So, okay, I love it. I'm going to have to learn more about this. Speaking of which, tell me, where can our audience, including me, of course, go, to learn more about like all of this, all your work, and really connect with you.
Yeah. So just go to Innate Marketing Genius. Innate is spelled I, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, ATE, innatemarketinggenius.com.
Nice. Okay, that's great. And I'll put that link in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah. You can find the assessment to figure out your marketing archetype. And there's just lots of good stuff to look at if you're curious.
Perfect. So just before we go, just one last question. What is the very first step that our audience should take right now to kind of just take all of the different, because we spoke about a number of different concepts, but what would be one thing that people can do to walk away and really start to implement these ideas of like the contribution
literally
mindset,
what I just said.
Practice? Okay.
The thing about learning what your marketing archetype is that actually is grounded in that contribution mindset because it's the answer to the question, how do you absolutely love to help people more consistently? Right. So that,
right.
Like, yeah, that's a very, very deep process I take people through. And that's how I discovered those types at all. So like, you're a celebrator because I've worked with many, many celebrators to understand what makes them tick as far as joyful service to others and contribution. So it's just grounded in that. So figure out your marketing archetype and you are on a good track. I would say just for this hot minute before you even get to a computer, one fun thing to do to get into the contribution mindset is if you could walk around your town right now and give everybody something that would feel so delightful to offer to them and forget reality, just have fun with this. Who cares if you have the money or the resources or whatever? Just like, what would it be like to give a puppy to everyone or, a donut? I mean, and then you can get more and more creative. It just gets better and better the more that you think about this thing and then sit down and write your next email.
In that energy, right? In that where you're already kind of buzzing from that feeling. That's such a good tip. I love that. Because I know that a lot of people approach writing their emails with kind of a sense of dread, but that is a great exercise. Like get yourself into this like spirit of true wild generosity and then write your email.
That's exactly how somebody could just use this book. Like just do one day. I mean, it's 40 days. Do one day. Mm-hmm. It'll take you like a few minutes and then attend to all of your outreach.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay, that's great. So many juicy pieces in there. This has been such a pleasure, Christina. I really have enjoyed.
We haven't even really dove into the marketing side. Like we've done all a good deep dive into the sort of inner part of it, but you and I could probably geek out about the outer game. I just want to put a pin in that one.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm sure that we were just like, scratching the surface. Well, digging deep into one element of things. And then it's the whole side of how does this actually play out in reality? But I love the foundation on the just getting your mindset right and really thinking about things in the right way and getting into that right energy. Because you can learn all the logistics, all the stuff that you need to be doing, but it's so much about if you're not coming at it with the right spirit and the right energy, then that stuff's not going to work.
True. And I will say one more thing about that. I think it's really easy to throw around words like authenticity and alignment and all that stuff, but it only comes from really putting yourself in the trenches and trying this stuff for realsies. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're off, and that's what it all hinges on. You have to be honest with yourself about, like, is this actually life-giving or not? And that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you, Kim.
I would love to know your thoughts. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation, and I would love to hear what came up for you. Let me know in the comments below if you are, of course, watching this on video, or if you're listening on the podcast, then go ahead and find me on Instagram and let me know. Okay, that is a wrap for today. As always, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Have an amazing week, and I will see you again very soon.